Good morning. Thanks, Amanda, and thanks everybody for joining in these kind of unprecedented times. We have a great attendee list today, and we have a great panel of presenters. You know, Pierce Brown once wrote, "Home isn't where you're from, it's where you find light when all grows dark." And this is certainly true with the current state of our world today. With COVID-19 pandemic and with all of us kind of sheltering at home, home is very important to us. For 14 years, I've had the great privilege of recognizing our top lender producers. And each year it amazes me how many loans are closed by 7 individuals. And this year is no exception. These 7 loan officers that I'm going to read here in a minute have closed over $55.6 million in first-time homebuyer loans and repeat homebuyer loans. The 7 awardees, or the 7 individuals that we would like to recognize, is Ryan Spellerberg from First Premier Bank in Sioux Falls, Sarah Erickson from Fairway Independent Mortgage out of Watertown, Justin Froyland from Fairway Independent Mortgage from Brookings, Shauna Kleinwalter-Rink from Plains Commerce in Sioux Falls, Blaine Fopma from Relia Bank in Sioux Falls, Julie Brunell from Plains Commerce Bank in Aberdeen, and Canna Harms from Dakota Bank in Rapid City. These individuals collectively have done a great job in our program. And if we could, we'd like to recognize all 240 loan officers because collectively they've closed over $441 million in the last 12 months. South Dakota Housing is very thankful to all the loan officers, but specifically to these 7 loan officers that consistently put their clients' best interest first. And this morning, we're going to explore what makes these individuals so successful. We have 5 of the 7 loan officers with us today to share their experience in what makes them so successful. We've asked a list of prepared questions, or we have prepared a list of questions that I'll be asking each of the panelists. So let's get started. So, Ryan, let's start with you. Why don't you define your role, not your title, in the real estate industry?
Hey, good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
My role in the industry, yes. I would like to say making houses affordable for buyers and just helping them give enough education to make good decisions in their purchase process.
Blaine, what about you?
Hear me, Brent?
I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, it's to help educate the customers, to make sure the process goes smooth, just to deliver on what the expectations are, and ultimately that's making sure the transaction closes. So that's the main thing.
Julie, how about you? What is your role in the real estate industry as you view it?
Well, I think it's communication with realtors to keep them abreast of new guidelines, and of course any issues we might have with a mutual customer, and then being active in their industry by being grateful to them as a realtor. So in this refi boom, I think sometimes we unfortunately put realtors on the back burner, and we shouldn't do that because you know, at some point this refi boom is going to be gone, and we need to keep in contact with our realtors so we know what they're needing, what education they need to keep abreast of our mortgage industry, and then be active in their monthly meetings and in their National Association Realtors as well.
And Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say coaching the homeowners, and you know what's due to them after the thing, and even getting to them to the purchase of a home, and coaching the realtors, sharing info with the different programs and things that are available for the clients so they can kind of help out the borrowers as well. And doing problem solving, you know, helping out in different ways to get the loan closed. So.
Okay, we'll go to question number 2. So how many years have you been in the business, Sarah?
I have been in the business 22 years now. I've been originating for just over 10.
Okay. Ryan, how about you?
19.
And Blaine.
I've been in the business for about 17 years and directly doing mortgages for about 11. So.
And I think I know the answer to this one. How about Julie?
23 years I've been in the business.
And I think you can all agree that really nothing has changed in that time frame, maybe?
Right.
So that leads us to the next question. Is your job easier now than it was 5 years ago, Julie?
I would say yes. Technology has made it easier, of course. And, you know, now it seems like we have a team, so that team helps us getting to the closing table, whether it's a mortgage assistance versus loan partners, closers, underwriters, local underwriting. So that whole team gets us to the closing table, which has changed a lot. When I started, our loan officers had to do all that. And so, you know, being more having that team member, of course, you can do a lot more volume. So it's just awesome. It's just gotten so much better.
Blaine, how about you? You think it's changed in the last 5 years? And how so?
Yeah, you know, personally for me, I've probably gone from doing more prospecting and things like that to just trying to fulfill orders. And so in that way, it's become easier. There's less stress in finding customers, but more stress in making sure things go according to plan too. So I think it's always about equal, but I do agree with Julie though too, that we have a lot more people helping us out now compared to what we used to. And that's awfully nice too.
Sarah, have you seen any changes in 5 years?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I kind of yes and no. Some stuff is a little bit harder, but you got some stuff like with the technology and more people behind you, that, you know, a lot more people helping you do some of the steps that we used to have to do back in the day. And yeah, and technology being the way it is, you can do a lot more, and people don't have to come see you as often, which is kind of nice too. So, but yeah, in other ways, more documentation on some stuff too than we had back in the day. So.
And how about you, Ryan?
Yeah, same thing for everybody else, but just look back and think if we would have tried to go through this epidemic 10 years ago and have to hand sign documents and meet customers still face to face. Most of the clients that I'm closing with today, I don't actually meet because we can't go to the closings. I send them e-disclosures. We could have done none of this 10 years ago with the technology that we have today. So that has been the biggest change for us over the last 5 to 10 years.
Well, I probably will predate myself, but when I was a lender, we didn't have title company closings, and we didn't have homebuyer education. We didn't have a lot of those things, and we conducted the whole process. We had a processor, but we were the closers, we were the shippers, we were everything. I remember sitting at a Royal typewriter typing out checks for closings. So that kind of tells you how old I was, or how old I've been in, or how long I've been in the business. But things have changed, and I think they've gotten a lot easier. For those of you that have just joined us on the call, we are talking with our 5 of our 7 loan officers of the year that we recognize every year at our annual conference. And this session is about picking their brain and finding out why, and finding out a little bit more about them and how they're so successful. So we've been asking them a list of prepared questions, and I will continue. So Ryan, how many hours a week do you work?
Say that you cut out.
How many hours a week do you work?
80 plus.
80 plus. And are those set hours, or do you just work from home, or how does that work?
When I'm awake, consider it working at this point.
Okay. Blaine, how about you? How many hours a week do you work, and do you have a set schedule?
Well, Ryan's going to make me look bad because I was going to say maybe 55 or 60. And, you know, it's been more this summer, obviously, but on average, you know, it's 10, 11-hour days, 5 days a week, and then whatever comes up on the weekends. But you're always working. So Even when you're not, you're thinking about the stuff you have going on. So it's a lot.
Well, Ryan didn't tell you that he takes 3 months off a year, so I think that kind of averages everything out. So how about you, Julie? How many hours a week do you work?
I don't keep track of it, but I would say on an average 60 hours. I don't think you're ever not working. So you could say you're 24/7. And I think we advertise that way as well. So, yeah.
Do you have set hours that you are at the bank or?
I start my day in the bank and it's dictated by closings. We're able to go to our closings now. The title company's allowed us back in. So it's dictated by what the calendar says for that day. But I guess I'm usually here by 7:30 in the morning and leave when you feel like you had enough.
Sarah, how many hours do you put in?
I wish sometimes I calculated them, but who knows? I usually start by 7:30 and I end my day around 7:30 and I get back on sometimes at 9, 10 o'clock at night and work for a few hours and on weekends. And yeah, I get text messages and sometimes phone calls from realtors at 10 o'clock at night and because they're trying to get a deal put together. So yeah, you're constantly working.
So Sarah, let me ask you this. Other than the paycheck, why do you do that? Why do you do what you do?
I love seeing people's faces when they get their homes, especially those first-time home buyers. Seeing their faces at closing, which now we can't go to them, but just their excitement when you talk to them on the phone about them getting to that first home. That's why I do it. The love of watching them.
Blaine, why do you do what you do?
I enjoy working with the customers and having relationships with them, and it's always fun to work with repeat customers again, and you see them at things around town, and so I enjoy the people. Other than that, yeah, it's you get to do a lot of different things too. That's what I like about it. You're not doing the same thing every day. You could come in and do something completely different if you needed to.
So where do you get most of your referrals from?
Most of them are from previous customers. So obviously that kind of changes as you go through this business, but it starts off where you're trying to find anything and everything and then ends up being repeat business and referrals from repeat business.
Ryan, why do you do what you do?
I think it's all about relationships. My wife and I like to entertain quite a bit. So if you come to a party or something that we throw, somebody will ask, how do you know these guys? And most of them are my clients. You build a relationship long-term so that you can continue to build other relationships. And that's been great for our business.
And you find most of your referrals in that setting?
I think our bank is a really good resource. Not only that, but just other referral relationships that you get, realtors, attorneys, accountants, relationships that you build outside of the bank as well.
Sure. And Julie, how about you?
I'd have to agree with all of them. I think I do it because of the joy of home ownership. I, for one, was thrilled when I bought my first house, and I can relate to the people that get their first house, and then most of my business comes from referrals from past clients.
Sure. Again, for the audience, we are asking these questions that we prepared, but we'll have time at the end. We'll open up the microphones to everybody that has a question, or you can put those in the chat box and we'll get to them at the end. So, Julie, you're very successful in SDHDA eyes. You've done a ton of loans over the years. We really appreciate that. But what makes you different than other loan officers, do you think? Why, when you work with South Dakota Housing, what makes you different than other loan officers?
I think first of all, my availability to customers and realtors, that 24/7 availability is always there with me. And then the knowledge of the programs and how to explain and educate customers, I think sets me apart so that they feel like they're part of that decision making. So we know that we all feel where they're getting the best fit for their circumstances.
Sarah, what sets you apart from other loan officers?
Yeah, I'd also agree with that. The knowledge part, having 22 years and some of it being an underwriter and having done everything from shipping, funding, working for a small bank, sometimes you had to do a lot of different parts of that loan. And the knowledge that I've gained over those years has really helped in being available to people 24/7 when they have questions. Is just really great. They like that, and they know they can trust on me to be there and help them out through all those decisions. Giving them options rather than just saying, here's the program you can do. Sit down and maybe show them a couple different things, because maybe they once you start talking about other options, they might have more info to give you that a different option might be a better fit for them. So, yeah.
Okay. Ryan, what sets you apart from other loan officers?
I think that we do a really good job with education on the clients. Before it was sitting down face to face with them, walking them through how the loan looked, what their down payment would be, what their payments are. Now we're doing it virtually, but we're still doing that same thing, helping them understand what their loan looks like and where their down payment is and monthly payment. And another thing that we do a really good job on is helping educate them on the MCC tax credit. There's a lot of lenders that will try and just offer the lowest rate because they feel they can get the sale that way. And I think helping educate that client on why the MCC is the best deal for them, not just the lowest interest rate up front, but the best deal overall, helps set us apart in how we do things a little.
Sure. And Blaine, what sets you apart, do you think?
Well, I'm not sure if I do anything better than anyone else, just to start, but I agree with the knowledge thing. If you know the programs and you know the process, you're not going to drop the ball on as many things. And that's what we strive for, is just to be able to deliver results and ultimately for the customer to have a good experience. And as long as we're doing that, I always say everything else will fall into place.
What part do you think social media has played in your success? Blaine?
Yeah, so I don't do a ton on social media. It is huge. I know it's a really good opportunity. I see a lot of stuff out there from other people. I think it's a real integral part of being successful today, but I truthfully don't do much at all. Hopefully I can get back to doing a little bit more here once these refinances slow down a little bit.
Sarah, how about you in social media? To what extent do you use that for your leads?
I use it now and then. I sometimes will get a few messages through Facebook and stuff, but the majority of my customers come from realtors and clients, past clients, and the word of mouth is my biggest thing. So that's what I usually focus on. I don't spend a lot of time on social media.
And Ryan, do you use social media?
Very, very minimal. Our bank is just getting into that a little bit, so that's all done by our marketing department, but very little.
Julie, do you think social media is important for your area?
For me personally, no. I too don't do a lot of social media, but I think it is for new loan officers coming on board, I think it is a tool that can be very helpful, especially that younger generation. I think that's what they get in tune to, and that's where they look. And our bank is good about giving us ideas and things that are compliant to put on. So I think too, once things slow down, that'll be a tool I'll use more and more.
Certainly you four have been in the business for quite a while, and maybe social media isn't that important. I think Julie, you just hit it on the head that the younger generation, they want to shop online, they want to find that house, they want to shop interest rates online. Do you think that is something, and I think some of you have said that you want to get into it, but I'll just open it up to anybody. Is your bank looking at getting more into social media where it's directed to you specifically rather than the bank?
Well, I know our bank, we all have our own business profile, especially on Facebook. So I know a lot of people use it, and when, we get conference calls from other realtor or from other loan officers, it's a very useful tool in bigger areas. So I know that's what we're doing.
Okay. Anybody else? So let me talk a little bit about COVID. So what's one thing you've had to change in the way that you conduct business in the last 6 months because of COVID? Let's start with Ryan.
I think it's just the face-to-face appointments, but I have been surprised at how people have adapted quickly to this and how they're open to doing virtual meetings as long as we can get them the same content. I was always a huge face-to-face person, and we can get across the same message, the same education, as long as we do a good job of being able to share screens and do different things like that. It really has an impact on the business. That has been a huge surprise for me.
Okay. Justin has just joined us. Justin, I'll ask you this question right off the bat. How has your business changed in the last 6 months in light of COVID? What are some things that you had to do differently?
He's on, but no one can hear him. I just sent him a new link to try to get on, try
Okay.
to help him out.
I don't think he wants to talk this morning, so we'll keep checking back. So Sarah, as long as you're on, how has COVID changed your business here in the last 6 months?
It's really helped it out a lot. Just doing I do set up a face-to-face by appointment only. And so then I don't have to travel because I live actually a little ways away from Watertown. So it's kind of nice not having to travel for almost 2 hours a day to go to Watertown and meet people. So it's really saved a lot of time, and I've been able to get a lot more done, which is kind of nice. And I do enjoy just that appointment only, that people take the time to set up those appointments. And so then it's not as easy. You don't get as many, can I come see you in 10 minutes? It's more planned out, which is kind of nice. So people can get their documentation and be more ready. And through technology, some people don't want to come see you, but you can still do a lot through the technology and going through Zoom and other things to try and set up those still human and go over things that way. So, yeah.
Do you think it'll ever go back to the way we used to do it?
I don't know. I'm happy with the new way. So for me, I don't know if I'd go back to going to the office every day. So, like I said, it's freed up more time for me to work on my customers. So.
Yep. And I noticed that because when I'm in the area, your area, or Sioux Falls, or wherever I'm traveling, I'll stop in just to say hello. And now I found that I have to schedule appointments at least a week in advance in order to get a hold of some of the loan officers. So that's probably good and bad. Julie, what about you? How has your business changed in the last 6 months because of COVID?
Well, I'd probably have to agree with Ryan. I think, a lot more online apps. You have a website where they can just input their information and contact them either virtually or by phone, and it's just saved a lot of time getting documentation in that technology. So I think we're back to the bank. Our bank is open. So I do see customers, but again, it's by appointment. So I think we'll have both going forward.
Sure.
They still like to see you face to face and kind of go through it in this area. And then, documentation, that kind of thing going forward is always online. So that speeds things along.
Sure. Justin, have you joined us?
Can you hear me now?
I can. Good morning.
Perfect.
Sorry about the technology.
Nope, not a problem. That's on my end. User error.
Well, Justin is one of our 7 loan officers as well, and he now is just joining us, and we're going to get him right into the rotation. Justin, I'm asking questions of the rest of the group, and this is the question that's on the table right now. In the last 6 months, how has your job changed because of COVID?
Yeah, great question. Definitely a lot more virtual aspects to the meeting, not as much face to face. I have had quite a few people that have still wanted to meet face to face despite what's going on, just because of the importance of the decision that they're making. And so I've been able to accommodate that. My office space allows for social distancing and all that fun stuff. So that's been quite the deal. Right away at the beginning of the COVID era, with working from home and trying to double as a teacher to my two children, that was interesting. But it's just wonderful with the technology we have these days, and the mobile apps and the online applications and electronic signatures and all that sort of stuff just really helps with that process a lot.
So let's change gears a little bit again and talk about homebuyer education. Ryan, how important do you think homebuyer education is? And let me just preface that by saying at South Dakota Housing, we think homebuyer education is very important. We think all first-time homebuyers should go through a class to learn the process. And again, I related to when I was a loan officer, I was also the homebuyer educator. I would explain to that borrower or borrowers what the process was going to look like. Nowadays, with the volume that we're seeing, you guys don't have time, and we've actually invented other nonprofits to do homebuyer education. At South Dakota Housing, we think it's important. We have not made it mandatory for every loan. On our conventional loans, we do make it mandatory. On our government loans, we have not, simply from the fact that if we did put that many people into the process, do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the nonprofits? Do we have the educators to handle the volume that we see in a year? So let me start out by asking, how important is homebuyer education?
So for us, every one of our first-time homebuyers gets recommended to work with one of the two agencies in town. I work really closely with Sioux Empire Housing and Kelly's team. They do a fantastic job. Our bank feels strongly enough that we give the buyer a credit of $250 on their closing statement to try and encourage them, along with the title company doing additional hero credits. So from a client standpoint, they'll get $400 to $450 to take a free class. That's amazing education. I don't know why people don't do it, but every one of our buyers gets recommended.
So you're giving $250 towards that buyer. What benefit do you think First Premier has by sending somebody through homebuyer education?
I think just from our standpoint, we want an educated buyer. They're going to make better decisions. We're going to have fewer foreclosures if those clients make the right decision up front. And I'd love to say they all take the class before they make an offer on a house, but they don't. But at least they have a better idea before they close on what it's going to look like.
Sure. Julie, what about homebuyer education in Aberdeen? How important is that?
Excuse me. I think it's very important, and I encourage all my customers to take it. And we work closely with Happy with it. I know they've been doing them online or virtually. So I like the $250. I might steal that. But I think it's important. I think people, once they go through that class, they understand that it's just not the payment they're going to have. It's, the upkeep. It's all the other things that come with owning a home. So I think it's very important.
And I know there's some homebuyer educators on the line as an attendee. When we open up the mics, maybe they can give us a little insight about how important homebuyer education is to them as well. Sarah, what about you in Watertown? Homebuyer education, do you see a lot of people going through it?
We don't. We used to have someone local that did it, but now it's harder. We don't have someone local, but some of them doing through Zoom, it's helped. Some people going up to Grow, South Dakota, have sent them there, and they've done some of the home buying education classes there. But it's good. I do spend as much time helping them out as I can, but I think sometimes it would be good for some of those young first-time home buyers to take a little bit more time and do a class like that. So
And I do think, at the Housing Authority, we believe that face-to-face interaction, 6 to 8 hour class is probably the most intense, and maybe for a long time we thought was the best method. But now with COVID and with the remote learning, we're kind of looking at that and saying, maybe classes can be done that way, and maybe they're just as effective. And certainly maybe we can get and reach some of those rural areas where, like in Watertown, we may not have a homebuyer educator there, but maybe we can reach those areas that don't have that. So that's something that we're exploring here at the Housing Authority. Blaine, how about you? Homebuyer education important in Sioux Falls?
Yeah, very much so. It's great when you have a customer to come in your office and you don't have to explain to them what private mortgage insurance is, or if you bring up the MCC tax credit and they're like, yep, ready, check that out. That makes my job a lot easier and gives them more confidence in what they're doing and less questions at closing, and the whole thing's just a better process.
Sure. So, Justin, what's the most memorable customer or experience that you had?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, I guess the one that probably sticks out the most in my mind was probably about a year and a half ago now or so, that we took over a deal from another lender that had some overlays that prevented them from getting it done, and kind of came down to the wire. And this was a little bit older lady, and she was just very set on buying this house, and was heartbroken when she didn't think she could make it happen. And we were able to come in and make things happen quite quickly for her. And we were at the closing table, and she literally started crying at the closing table because she was so happy that we were able to make things happen, and just things worked out how they were supposed to. And so that was probably one that really just kind of sticks out in my head. But I really enjoy working with all sorts of first-time home buyers and of all ages, because there's a lot of people that are 40 years old that have never purchased a home and don't understand that process. And so I would say, as far as clientele, they're probably some of my favorite to work with, just because I'm a horrible teacher. I learned that last year trying to teach my kids. But when it's something I'm passionate about, like mortgage, I really enjoy that process of helping someone understand something that they might not otherwise. And so yeah, kind of a two-part answer, I guess.
Right. Excuse me, Ryan, with all of your customers, what's a memorable customer that you remember, or an experience that you had with a customer?
Sure. Probably last year is one of the most memorable. Single mom, 3 kids, just barely making it go. And she got into one of the Dunham program houses up on the north side of town here, where they buy the house for half of the value. So she bought a $75,000 house that appraised for $160,000. And it was really hard for her. She really had to struggle with her credit, but over 6 months, she got it done. Leaving the closing, she starts crying out by her car, hugs me. There must have been dust in the air, because I started tearing up a little bit too, just from the dust. But other than that, those are the real experiences that make you feel good about what you do every day.
Yeah, that dust can be tricky. How about you, Julie? What's your most memorable experience or customer?
Well, I had a similar experience with a customer that came in and I think she had been to 2 or 3 different lenders that told her no, and we were able to get it done with them. And she is back today with me refinancing, and still brings up, nobody else would do this but you. And it just gives you a warm, good feeling that you're able to help someone. After 23 years, you get a lot of them. You don't always remember everyone, but that's why you get up and do this business every day, is just knowing you help somebody get a home. It's just so important.
Yeah, I remember, again, as a lender, first-time home buyers was the best customer that I've had, but then also the repeat customers that came back, and I often said, if I can redo some of those first borrowers I had, customers, I could do a much better job the second time. But the repeat borrowers were really rewarding as well. How about you, Blaine? What's one customer experience you remember?
I always joke that the only ones you remember are the ones that didn't go well. So we're not gonna talk about any of those here today. But it's always fun helping all the people that cry and hug you and all those things. Not to be morbid here, but I did have a situation. I was working down in Rock Valley, Iowa, and I had a guy that was on his deathbed, and they wanted to refinance, and I had to go to his house, and because he didn't have the strength to get to the bank. And I did that, and I found out that he passed away literally about 15 minutes after I was at his home signing the paperwork. So that was definitely the most interesting situation I've been in, and they were happy to have gotten everything done ahead of time. But yeah, you just don't know what you're going to stumble on.
Yep. So on that happy note, how about you, Sarah? What are some of your most memorable customers?
Oh, probably my most memorable one is a customer. We took about three or 4 years to rebuild her credit, giving her advice, and her parents' home came up for sale, and she came in and she's like, I think I'm finally there. I've taken all of your advice. And we pulled her credit, and we were able to get her into her parents' home, and she was just so excited where she got to purchase the home she grew up in, and she never thought she would ever have that opportunity. So that was one of my favorite ones.
Great. So I don't want to turn this into a job interview, but let's start with what's your greatest weakness, Sarah? What do you think your greatest weakness is in this business?
One of my weaknesses is actually remembering names, which is actually in my job. You don't want to forget people's names, but I do. I have a hard time remembering names and faces. So a lot of times will have to just like, hi, like I remember you, but I can't think of your name at the moment. So yeah, that's one of my biggest weaknesses.
Julie, how about you? What's one of your weaknesses in this business?
I would say that, in this time, in this day and age of the volume we're having, I would say organization at this point. I always thought I was a very organized person, but, it's just, some days it just gets to be too much. But, I do have a good team member now, and she's probably helped me with that. So we're going forward.
Ryan, other than your allergy to dust, what is one of your weaknesses?
So for 20 years now, I've gotten in my annual reviews that I have to have more patience because I just don't have patience. And I think everybody should work at the same speed that I expect. So that's been the number one issue.
Ryan, another question came up, and this is probably off track, but how many people do you have on your team?
Just one, personally.
Just one, okay. And how about Blaine? Blaine, what's one of your weaknesses?
Yeah, I'd say organization. Always can improve on that. I will throw in another one too. Sometimes I know how to make something work, and I want to do it because I know I can, but it's going to be probably something that I maybe should have backed away from and just said no to due to time or other issues. So sometimes I just have to learn how to say no up front.
Sure. Blaine, if you could change one thing in the industry, what would it be?
Well, the stress. That's the biggest thing. I don't know. There's lots of ways you can change it. Better process, being more diligent up front and getting paperwork and doing more pre-underwriting. But if there was a way to limit the stress so you're not worrying about your, all your loans all the time, that would be wonderful.
Yep. How about you, Justin?
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I thought I lost you again there for a second.
What's one thing you'd change in the industry if you could?
The surprises that seem to come up every once in a while, which of course that will probably unfortunately never go away. But when you've got a file that you're working through and everything seems to be going fine, and then all of a sudden they quit their job and get a new job or something along those lines, that never ceases to fail. That would be wonderful if that could be changed, but unfortunately that's probably not very realistic. I'm not real sure, because I really feel like the processes from where I was lending at before to now, the processes have just been much more streamlined from that perspective. But I would, everyone's got too much of a workload right now, and processors, underwriters, and everyone involved, and so it would be nice to either have more people to help with some of that stuff, or just to help with that stress level as well.
Ryan, excuse me, Ryan, how about you?
I think I would probably bring a little bit more common sense into mortgage lending. Maybe have somebody that's ever done a mortgage loan be the one that is in charge of making the rules on disclosures and make it right for the customer.
Yep, I agree. So when you retire, what's one thing you want people to say about you, Ryan?
Probably that I helped a lot of people get into their homes when maybe somebody else couldn't.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted people to think that I helped out the community and helped them, achieve home ownership, and and spend a little bit more time with those people. Sometimes they get told no, and they don't know why, and you give them a little bit extra guidance and tell them what to do, and that's what I want people to remember, that I gave them that little extra advice on what to do, help them out in the future.
Justin, how about you? What's one thing you want people to remember you by when you retire?
I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Sarah on that one. I kind of want to be remembered for not only the guy that worked his butt off for the slam dunk deal, but also the guy that worked his butt off for the deal that took a year and a half to get to the point where we could buy a house and then work through the process. And so that'd be what I would want to be remembered for as well.
How about you, Julie?
I would like to be remembered that she treated everybody with respect.
Yep.
Whether they had great credit, poor credit, that I took the time for them and was easy to work with and understood people's situations. And didn't criticize or downplay them, just told them what they needed to do to make it work.
Blaine, how about you? What's one thing you want people to remember about you when you retire?
Just that I was reliable and honest, and hopefully they're somewhat disappointed when that day comes that I'm not available to them anymore.
So for the group, I've got one last question, and then I think we'll open it up to anybody that has questions in the audience, and I think there has been a few already. So what's the last question I want to ask? And Blaine, you're up on the screen right now, so let me ask you this. What's one piece of advice you would give a beginning loan originator or loan officer? One piece of advice.
Just not to quit. Don't give up. There's so many times that I thought about quitting in the first 1 to 2 years, and it would have been so easy to quit. And I look back now, and it's been awfully rewarding that I didn't. Everybody's trying to kill you. That's what I say when you start off. Everybody expects you to not make it, and so you just got to stay at it and prove everybody wrong.
Justin, how about you? What's one piece of advice you'd like to give a beginning loan officer or originator?
I would say really just focus on relationships with everything from realtor referral partner relationships to the relationships you have with your clients that you're working with, because something that I didn't realize right in the beginning part of my career, with having to wait to get repeat customers. Now that I'm 6-7 years into the business, I've been seeing a number of repeat customers, as well as with rates being low in refis. And so I would say the big bit of advice would be to focus on relationships and making sure you're doing right by people, and that'll only help grow those relationships.
Okay. Ryan, how about you? What's one piece of advice you'd give a new loan officer?
I know it sounds corny, but always do the right thing for the customer. I think that's something that our bank is always a big proponent of. Telling a client that a deal doesn't make sense, especially on a lot of refis today, it might not be the right thing for your pocketbook, but it's the right thing for the client. And you're going to get way more business if you treat people like you would treat your own family, because then they're going to go tell their friends and family that you talked them out of doing a deal that didn't make sense for them. You're going to get more business in return that way.
Good advice. Sarah, how about you? What's one piece of advice you'd give a loan officer? A new one.
Yeah, treat others the way you want to be treated, and make all of your customers feel special, and don't give up, and build those relationships. That everyone's got great ones. Definitely, though, treat others the way you want to be treated, and make sure that they're doing the right thing for them in the future.
Sure. And Julie?
Well, I have to agree with all of them. Again, treat everybody with respect, and if you lead that by example, then I think you always get referral partners, and always respect what they're going through. I always try to keep track of where my leads come and my pre-quals, and contact them as much as I can once they pre-qual to see what they're doing, if you can help them with any way. Just maintain that good relationship with realtors and any referral partners you might have. Don't take them for granted.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for all the questions that I had. Again, this session was just kind of letting our best of the best explain why they're so successful, and I think you can see by their answers that they really have a genuine interest in helping people get into an affordable home. So with that, I think we will open up the attendees. If I could get some help to unmute everybody, and then we'll take questions from the participants. Okay, I think we've unmuted everybody, so you will have to unmute yourself in addition to that. So who's got a question? And again, you can either ask it or you can put it in the chat box, and we'll get it that way as well.
Brent, there are a couple in the chat box already.
All right, I'm going there right now. If you can see them, Amanda, why don't you ask them?
We had a question on what sets you apart from the competition, and how do you market yourself? And what activity or groups do you belong to that you feel help you in your career?
We'll just open that up to everybody. And I think we kind of touched on that on one of the questions. I think that question came a little bit early in our presentation. What sets you apart from your competition? Anybody want to explain that again?
Brent, this is Justin here. That may have been before I came on, so I can maybe mention something here. I guess I think the two things that set me apart from my competition is my knowledge and my availability. I like to think that I know quite a bit about the process, and I'm fairly good at explaining it to my clients, as well as my availability with being able to reach me at any time on my cell phone, knowing that if I'm reading my child a bedtime story, I'm not going to answer, but I'll call you back as soon as I'm finished up. And so I would say those are kind of the two things that set me aside from a lot of my competition. As far as the organizations go or groups go, I've been very, very active in the community since I got into banking, a little over 10 years ago now. And so everything from I'm an ambassador with the Chamber of Commerce, the treasurer for the local Home Builders Association, on the board of directors for the Habitat for Humanity. And I really just enjoy being involved with the community and helping out where I can and volunteering where I can. And so I would say, as many things as you can be involved in and still make your wife or husband happy at home, the better, because my wife said I'm not allowed to get on any more boards. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my 2 cents there.
One of the things that I mentioned during the session was home buyer education, and I know Kelly, you're on the line. You had a question as well. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask the group the question in regards to HUD-approved counselors?
Good morning, Brent. Now I have to remember which question I asked. I think it was along the lines of homebuyer education. What do you feel like if you have a client that doesn't take home buyer education versus a client that does take education. Do you see a big difference? How do you feel that home buyer education helps your clients through the process, and not just those that need to take it or have to take it, those who elect to take it that don't have a conventional loan?
We'll just open it up to the group.
Kelly, I might answer that for you. When a buyer comes in and they have no experience, I can help them through the math side of things. I can tell them about what the loan looks like. But the reason I really recommend you guys is that you help them through the entire process, start to finish, on the credit piece, to making an offer, what happens in that time, into closing, and even post-closing. You guys do a phenomenal job. And I just tell them, I can tell you the math side, what your down payment, your monthly payment are going to be, but these guys are going to come in and really do a good education job for you guys on understanding that entire process. So that's why I recommend you guys for an education source.
Great. So any other questions from the attendees or from the group?
Brent, this is Mark. I'd like to add on to the question you asked earlier and ask you how many hours a week that you work.
That would be me. Since my boss asked it, I'm working 80 hours a week with Ryan. I'm right there, Ryan. No, I'm kidding. I put some long days in, but I probably about 40 or 50 at the most.
Good answer.
All right, with that, if there's no other questions, again, I want to thank the panelists, and if we were live, I'd ask you to give them applause, but since we're not live, I will do that for you. Thank you very much, panelists, for participating and for all of the hard work that you do at Housing Authority. We could not be successful and brag about our numbers without hard work and dedication of realtors and lenders like yourself working with our program. So thank you very much. Everyone have a great day, and thanks for attending.